This is, uh, wow. All right. So, this is a lot of shadow work that I've been doing for the last week, and I'm feeling like I'm still going to be working on this for another week. So, it's about 2 weeks of shadow work. But this particular video in general, I've been working on for 3, 4 days, and I intended to do it in one day, but I just kept getting this nagging feeling, that I should wait and focus on it more, meditate on it more. And each time I did that, there was like another layer peeling back, revealing itself. Okay, so, but a lot of it had to focus on this Lover's card on relationships. Okay, if you notice here in this particular card, we have 3 individuals. Okay, and usually I think of this, especially if the card is in reverse, as a third party or something like this. But in this case, it's upright. And this isn't seeming like evil eye or third party. This has been manifesting as toxic patterns or common patterns of a codependent relationship, okay, that needs to be worked out. And this is like I have been working on it, okay? So it's more like I feel called to share my journey with you and see what relates, because this is a really common relationship pattern that I've noticed after doing this inner work. It's more like I created some it's like a curation of inner work that I'm thinking is going to align with the audience that is viewing it. Okay. And actually, I'm going to set the intention right now that whoever is viewing this needs to hear this, and that it will help them, that they'll get something out of this to help them in their relationships and in their self-worth in general, in their relationship with self first and foremost. That's the important part in order to get rid of these toxic patterns, is the relationship within the self. And a lot of these things are things you've probably heard, especially if you believe you're on the twin flame journey, or you've been on such a similar journey, okay, about balancing the divine feminine, divine masculine. So definitely that could be a part of your journey, but I'm not focusing on that so much. I'm focusing more on the shadow aspect and the shadow work of inner self that anybody and everybody can do, okay? So this isn't going to be a tarot reading. It's just more some, basically a download for myself that I also feel that would relate to other people, okay? And so I've written everything down because it was so much. And I think I will take you on the journey that I went through. So first, I was focusing on irritation, okay? I was feeling really irritated. And I do know that this is kind of a thing I'm known for, which is ironic because I'm also known for my loving kindness, but I'm known for being a little bit of a firecracker at the same time. And my dad is similar as well. So I could feel that there's some pattern going on, but at the same time, I was feeling really justified in my irritation. And I was justified, And this was, when I peeled back a little bit deeper, this was because I was feeling disrespected. When I was thinking about respect, and I even made a post about it, I realized that I was feeling disrespected in my relationships with others, or even just people in general, how I was showing up in the world. People were disrespecting me just for existing. People were disrespecting me. And this was actually a core wound back in my childhood because, my parents' relationship, like on many of us, was quite difficult, and I wasn't really valued or respected. And sometimes that's a part of our culture where children are not respected as much as adults, okay? So if you were feeling unheard or disrespected as a child, and like you did not matter, your opinions or beliefs about yourself did not matter, then this is probably for you. And especially if you noticed this in your parents as well, that maybe they weren't so confident. And maybe they chose partners that weren't suitable for them. And you could see that as a child. So if you could see it, then why couldn't they? So that was the first part, was disrespect, okay, that I noticed. And then I thought if I worked on this disrespect aspect and worked on, affirmations for respecting myself, that would help with my irritation. And it did, but not completely. And then I realized, I worked on that anger a bit, because anger was what's relying on, that's where the irritation's coming from. Irritation is more of a passive aggressive type of anger, right? But the anger is coming from the original disrespect. Okay, so you feel angry, then you're passive aggressive about it, because maybe you it doesn't align with your beliefs, even if the beliefs are wrong or something like that. So you don't align with anger. You feel, not saying like anger is a good emotion, but for some reason you're not able to express it. So it's going to come out as passive aggressive irritation. Okay, so if you're just feeling like everything is annoying you, you're probably angry about something that disrespected you. And what I was doing to work on this was something called yoga nidra. So it was like a type of meditation that's a yogic sleep. And I was doing this before I actually did yoga. And I was working on like parts of the body that were feeling irritated. And one thing through this is I noticed the next time my irritation was triggered, that it wasn't just disrespect. There was more. But it was coming still from the same wounding of worth, right? Because when someone disrespects you, it's about the worth. Like you're like, hey, I exist here. Why are you, countering that? Like that I don't deserve to exist as myself, or something like that. Or my opinion isn't valid. Okay, so that's something about, are you worthy for something? Another thing I noticed was criticism was tied into this irritation. I'm very critical of others, okay? And sometimes I go too far. A lot of the times I go too far. But it's another type of passive-aggressive behavior, is criticism, okay? And this, I know I get this from my mother. My mother was very, maybe I can't diagnose her as a narcissist, but I experienced my mother as a narcissist, okay? And she's very narcissistic and very, very critical growing up. So I can be critical to others, and I feel like that they should be able to take it, but they can't. And actually, that's why would I want them to feel like how I did as a child? But, it's a bit difficult for me to control that criticism, and I go too deep against other people. Okay, so when I look back in that criticism, and I was working on that and taking that a step back, I realized that I felt disgusted. Okay, so there was these two strong feelings that are really difficult to basically digest, right? You feel this in your stomach. Criticism is actually a passive-aggressive type of disgust. And then irritation is a passive-aggressive type of anger coming from disrespect. And disgust, disdain, where is that coming from? I was thinking about it. And I want to reveal now what's on this paper. Okay. I realized that I was blinded somewhere, because these really strong emotions, disgust and anger, I felt so entitled to these emotions, which is obviously the ego, okay? But when I was following the emotions and the pattern and the relationships around me in my past, right? Because right now I feel entitled to disrespect, or not to disrespect. Well, yeah, actually it is kind of like, okay, you disrespected me, I can disrespect you with my criticism, okay? And, it's tit for tat. Like, I am in tit for tat mode with my partner over some deep wounds that they caused, right? But it's more like they were triggering my deep wounds from childhood. And I consider myself a pretty confident person and things like that. But I realized that there was a type of masking behavior, and not completely masking, but it's just like I reframed what self-worth meant in order for me to survive in my household when I was younger, okay? And this was causing people-pleasing behavior, which I've worked on so much, right, that I have a lot of boundaries, but now my boundaries are too strong, okay? My boundaries are too strong because I hadn't worked on the core wound of the self-worth and the insecurities, the fear, and the shame that I feel around the self-worth that my parents had actually put there, okay? And I'm not saying anything about your parents because I don't know. Like, as my father's case, it was not intentional. It's because he had this core wound. And even my mother, she is a narcissist, that is her core wound also, shame. Okay, and I do know that my mother put on a lot of her shame onto me. And what this caused between my mother and my father, they're both feeling shame because of my mother is narcissistic. And actually, I noticed, so my mother used criticism, and I'm also using criticism. I'm repeating this behavior. And another thing with the disgust and the anger, this is a pattern of my father as he related with my mother, okay? So my father was also doing this. But similarly to my father, and less like my mother, what I adapted into the house was people-pleasing behavior, right? And instead of saying I am worthy to myself, because I didn't believe it, that's not what was coming to me, okay? I changed it to I am helpful. And that's what made me feel like I am worthy. And I know this seems a bit off topic, but it's on topic because actually where I got this download was from a dream I had, which was really intimate and sexual in nature. But in this dream, I was very giving of my body, okay? And it was really innocent and naive kind of type. So it's kind of like the good girl kink, okay? Where it's just like, you just want to please the other person, but people are using you and it's almost like you're too naive to notice it. So especially if you're someone who started having intercourse at a young age, or someone who, the people-pleasing behavior also took it to the bedroom, okay? And maybe you had multiple partners. And what society does is it attacks that type of woman, right? Like, men can be like that, but if you're a female presenting, society attacks them and says, oh, you don't have any self-worth. And it really just reinforces that, because how you show that you're worthy is by people pleasing and pleasing others, which is part of the reason you're overly active, right? And it just makes it worse, kind of puts you into the wrong crowd and people that don't respect your body. And then you're getting back into that cycle of disrespect. And over time, ignoring this anger, because if you're a people pleaser, you're going to ignore the anger. You're going to get this passive-aggressive irritation and criticism. And if you don't let any of the irritation or criticism out, it's going to get into your body, okay? And that's going to result in some diseases, which I also have diseases. I have I can't eat gluten. I had a lot of allergies and things like that. Okay, so this is how you get these kind of chronic illnesses. Sorry, I couldn't think of that word. Okay, so if you're seeing these relationship patterns, it's actually really common because it's a type of codependent relationship pattern where there is someone around who is maybe someone you have to walk on eggshells, who requires someone to people please them, right? Maybe they have a lot of criticism or something like that. But then on the other side, the person that gives too much also gets into a state of irritation, or their body is breaking down, their mind is breaking down, okay? So this is like, for the child, they're receiving it from both sides, from both ways. And yeah, so as I'm looking here on my notes here, that was one way I went there, but we have I'm kind of digressing back to what I was saying here, this blinder, because you're feeling the ego, the blinders with the anger and the disgust. Your ego is saying, hey, my self-worth is being attacked. And that's where you get the anger and the disgust. And you're disillusioned to it because of the people-pleasing behavior, if that is the route you went, right? Maybe if you have more narcissistic tendencies, this could still be a message for you, okay? So if maybe you're the other person in the relationship, then this could still help you. I'm not saying that you're a narcissist, but there's kind of a mirror here where you guys are, let's just say, for example, going back to the twin flame journey, okay, so, or the feminine, divine masculine, so you don't have to be a twin flame. So the divine feminine is supposed to be more of the giver, and as I was talking about the people pleasing and stuff like that, and then the divine masculine is the leader, which can, in the wrong aspect, can be egoic and narcissistic. Okay, so if you're more of the masculine in here, and maybe you don't have these people-pleasing tendencies, but more of a controlling aspect, this is still a message for you, because it's still kind of leading to the same pattern or result in the relationships. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just grab my camera. Okay. Or, okay, what is better is if I cut this out and I just show you the picture in an edit. Like I can just attach it. I feel like that's better. All right. Sorry about that. Okay. I was saying here, either way, this is for you. Now, what I was realizing, where the disgust is coming back, you have to go back and try to figure out what is causing that disgust. Even if your ego is telling you, you deserve it. You deserve to attack this. You don't feel good when you're acting this way, right? And it's not solving the problem. And it keeps repeating in all your relationships. So even if actually you are in the right this time, why not work on it? Why not go back and do this shadow work, basically, and try to figure out why are you always feeling this disgust with your partners? And when I went back and I realized the people-pleasing behavior is making me choose these partners that bring out disgust, okay? And this is something my father did. He has a low self-esteem, so he would choose multiple partners that were basically unworthy of him. And what does it mean when you choose a partner that is unworthy of you? Okay. And I'm saying this in quotations because, everyone has their worth. But if you see your partner as unworthy of you, this is the shadow aspect. All right. They're not as worthy of love as they are. Okay. They're not worthy as they are. They're a project for you. And this gives you value. This makes you more worthy than them. Okay. And so you're not thinking that way, right? That's the shadow. What you're thinking is you want to help them. Maybe they have a lot of wounds. So you want to be there for them. They lack support. And you can replace the word support with anything. Like, they lack the knowledge, they're not as like mature as me, so I can help balance them out. You're thinking you're going to balance them out with your good qualities, right? So that sounds really nice. Just like I am helpful sounds nice. And you can replace like I am helpful with anything to say that I'm actually worthy, but innately you are worthy. Okay, but you felt like, okay, just as I am, I'm not worthy. I have to add this quality. And then you're using that quality and projecting it onto your partner, okay, and trying to make them better for you. Because you already don't see them as worthy for you, okay? You're going to make them worthy. And in doing so, you will become worthy. Okay? This is where the toxic pattern is coming up in your life, because that's never going to work, because you're telling them subconsciously they're not as worthy of love as you are. And your partner will pick up on that. Okay? And their pattern, that only encourages them more to be resentful of you, to perceive you as nagging. Okay? And that just creates this cycle. You're not listening to them because what do they even have to say, right? The more irritated you get, right? So, and you are validated then by people around you because everyone sees how much you put into a relationship. You know, you have a partner that comes home and drinks and they're sitting on the couch and you've made dinner for them and everything like that. So you are the one suffering, okay? And you're asking them to get up off of the couch and help take care of the kids. Obviously, you are the one suffering, okay? And then people are saying, why don't you leave them? And then you have a reason. And sometimes they're very valid reasons, right? And this would go back to where you couldn't leave your parents, right? So you're actually codependent on that person and you're recreating that situation where you're stuck with someone who's not validating your self-worth, okay? But you are able to be the victim, so you are more worthy than them, okay? And putting up with bad behavior and disrespect increases your worth, which is why you're going to ignore the anger and you end up just being irritated. So anger to the initial disrespects. Okay, so they come home, they take their shoes off, they sit down, they watch TV. Okay, you just roll your eyes, right? You don't really fully express yourself. But then slowly, I don't know, the TV is too loud or something like that. And then you yell at them. Then you snap at them. Why are you not helping with the kids? Okay, this is I don't have kids. I'm just giving an example. This is my pattern. Okay, this is what I saw around me. Okay, it's very common. And then, one more thing I wanted to mention. Back with the self-disrespect and the disgust towards their behavior. Okay, this disgust also makes you better. The disgust, I was feeling a lot of disgust back living with my stepmother because she was a hoarder, okay? And I noticed in my relationships, I often feel disgusted, not just generally about cleanliness, but things that remind me of my step family, which I perceived to be lazy. I really hope they don't find this because I really don't have a lot of nice things to say about them. And again, if I were completely healed, I could transform this disgust, right? And, but disgust is really difficult. Imagine trying to, find your space, create a space for you, trying to meditate, and you just have this smell of garbage. Right? How can you relax? It's irritating in itself to be disgusted, okay, and have something disgusting around you. If you go to a hoarder's house, you immediately want to leave, right? And so if you're living in it, you have this constant feeling of irritation, and that kind of environment puts you into survival mode because you're senses are completely hijacked, okay? And when your senses are hijacked, you can't look at what's going on around you deeply, right? So you just end up being reactive and in this survival mode, okay? And when you're reactive and in a survival mode, this is where fear and shame really thrive, okay? You feel shameful of where you live. You feel shameful of your family. Like for me, I never invited any friends over. Why? You shouldn't, right? Why would you, right? And so I was always at other people's houses. And yes, later I had housing insecurity because I didn't want to live at home. Okay. And I didn't get the head start that other people got because I was trying to, live on my own so that I can have a peaceful place. But I was never at peace internally because I was always working so hard to find that shelter. I don't know if that makes any sense. So these insecurities, they're mostly going to be 3D related. And this goes kind of into the root chakra. So you're going to be in that root chakra and you're not thinking about self-worth, the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which if you're interested in that, there are other interpretations because where Maslow originally got it from is from Native Americans, which have a different kind of hierarchy, which I find even better than Maslow's hierarchy of needs, because Maslow's hierarchy of needs is really masculine and westernized, and the other hierarchy of needs from the Native Americans is much more community-based and probably more focused on what we're discussing now. But that's a side note. And so if you are having these housing insecurities and you're basically working on your root chakra, okay, and finding food and stuff like that, this only increases the feelings of fear and shame. And it attacks your self-worth as well. So your core wound is actually growing even more. So first it started with, relationship-wise, you weren't feeling the worth. But now you also don't feel worthy at all because why is it so hard to exist? Before you were feeling like, oh, I shouldn't exist. Now, why is it hard to exist? It's reinforcing it, okay? It's reinforcing it. And then you not only have your project partner, you get your survival partner, okay? And this would be someone who, if you are in your feminine energy and you would be seeking some masculine who is really strong. So this would be someone in the King of Wands reverse kind of energy, or any of the kings in reverse energy, right? But I'm thinking King of Wands who has that kind of like brutalist mentality. And this would also go into your people-pleasing behavior because you're thinking, okay, they are really aggressive, but I can change them with my love, basically. But actually you want that. You want that aggressiveness because you are fearing, lack of shelter or lack of food. You don't feel safe. So you actually are attracted to that aggression on one hand. And on the other hand, it kind of goes against your people-pleasing behavior. So it's more like they are representing the shadow self where you're not standing up for yourself. So they're on the opposite end where they're overly aggressive and you're not aggressive enough. And I think you've seen those kind of partners a lot. And then on the other way, if you're a masculine, you might end up with a Queen of Cups in reverse. Okay, so this is someone, she is really nurturing, but in a manipulative type of way, right? So someone like you imagine that they're going to give you the world, but then she actually doesn't share her emotions. And again, it could actually be any of the queens in reverse that you end up with. And I was thinking that sometimes I kind of act like the Queen of Swords in reverse, and that's where I get the relationship problems coming from, this irritation, this criticism, the disgust, the anger. That would be Queen of Swords in reverse, because Queen of Swords is trying to set those boundaries, right? But if she's doing it in a disrespectful manner, then she would be Queen of Swords in reverse. And Queen of Cups though she would be a bit more different, a bit more manipulative in her behavior. So I'm thinking, like the stereotypical gold digger kind of person, because these are both people who are looking to survive. Okay. They're survival partners. These are not necessarily your love partners, these karmic partners. They're karmic, but I'm thinking like you chose them. So you are also karmic. So you're choosing to survive together. You're in your survival mindset. Okay. So there is that benefit, and there is a type of love there that you especially feel in the beginning. Okay. So imagine here, imagine he is not actually with his divine partner, and he's with this Queen of Cups in reverse, because that is kind of how I imagine the Queen of Cups in reverse, a little bit insecure. Okay. He's actually with her, but he chose her. Maybe he's insecure. Okay. So that's actually a perfect match there. All right. So I'm getting into that quite deeply, and I think that I've got everything there. Then what to do? So now you know the pattern, right? You follow the emotions, you see the cycles around you, and you see how you're there. So how do you heal? And again, it goes back into the emotions. These emotions, where are they? And disgust is in the stomach mostly, right? Anger, I don't experience that necessarily in my stomach, but after being angry, my stomach hurts. Okay. Irritation and criticism. So just follow that, and you can work on that on yourself. But one thing I looked up in the chakras, because as I was doing the yoga nidra, I think I said that right, but I was doing this body scan, right, and working on these emotions and finding what are the triggers, where are they coming from, what are the memories associated with this, and discovering this pattern. And as I was trying to work on it, I saw 3 stars, almost like a constellation, and it would actually be in reverse, because it's just like ordered number 1, 2, 3, and the third star was not in alignment with the other 2 stars. It was far left. Okay. And if it was actually my body that you were looking at, it would actually be far right. I don't know if that matters to you. But maybe you know more about chakras than me, because I had to look up quite a lot. And I realized I do know the chakras, and I have done some chakra work in general, but more like all 7 of them at the same time. And I'd look it up, or, just listen to a sound. And I did mostly a lot of work with the root chakra, because as I said before, I came from an insecure household. Okay. And I thought, well, I can't do any of the other chakras unless I've, worked on this. But every time I would get myself feeling a bit more secure, it would fall apart. And as I'm seeing and I'm realizing now, it's coming from this. And as I researched the 3rd chakra, and I realized I couldn't remember it. I can only remember 5 chakras at a time. And I always skip the 3rd chakra. So I looked it up. What is the 3rd chakra? The solar plexus chakra. And the emotions associated with it are all about these feelings that come up in this wounded codependent relationship pattern that I'm discussing. And I don't know if this relationship pattern has a name in particular, but I decided to go deeply into the solar plexus, and that's what I've been doing for 3-4 days, is just understanding it a bit more. And I realized that there's 10 negative emotions associated with the solar plexus chakra that are surrounding the outside, which the middle part is rum, and it represents a fire, right? So this is why I have the lemon fire burning. It doesn't even smell. It's just there for aesthetic purposes. Anyways, so each one of these petals, there's 10 of them, represents these negative emotions that I just mentioned. A few of them. Some of them I don't really necessarily have work to do on, but it's just enough of them where I'm out of alignment. So maybe for you, you have different ones than I do. But I think for most people, the root of it all is shame. So which I have here, shame. And then, of course, fear, as I mentioned. Disgust, again, as I mentioned. And disgust was one that I never really thought about, but I just noticed that I've been feeling more and more disgusted in general recently over the last 5 years. And this was coming from betrayal in my family. And as I was working on my self-respect, right, working on my people-pleasing behavior, my disgust increased to a point where it was just difficult for me to date or make any kind of relationship, because I would just be so disgusted by any type of slight, like, why is everyone out here behaving so poorly? But I'm also having negative qualities, but I just couldn't stomach it anymore. Like, literally, I got the ick all the time. And still do. But I'm just more adapted to it. And but this is probably likely why I'm having gluten issues now. And next is delusion. I think I've gone through periods of that, but it's not something I'm working on. Foolishness. Sadness, like I when I was younger, because of going out in the world on my own, basically, I did have a lot of issues with depression. Spiritual ignorance. Thirst. And I'm going to investigate more about thirst, because I think this means like, as in kind of like a greed, like cravings, jealousy, and treachery. And I think treachery is the one I'm dealing with quite a lot now, which is why my solar plexus, I would never even remember it, which is crazy, right? So it's almost like, because if you're out of alignment, your chakra is weak, right? And so it's like you're so disconnected, you don't remember it, right? So I would always go root chakra, sacral chakra, heart chakra, throat chakra, third eye. And then I'd also forget the crown, okay? So take that as whatever is for you. So looking into this more, then how do you heal it? Because you get kind of stuck here, right? As most people do. I'm assuming you get stuck here, because I did, right? If I do the solar plexus things, sure, wear yellow, sure, but if I don't really understand or really try and think about it, is it really going to help? And the answer is no, especially not with the solar plexus, because the solar plexus is about worth, it's about self and expressing yourself and being yourself. So just following along isn't going to cut the cake. You still have more work to do. Okay, so thinking about it, we have to reframe these behaviors, these relationship patterns, in order to be the cycle breaker. Okay, and I'm sure you're the cycle breaker of a lot of things if you're here. Okay, so on the opposite sides of these kind of feelings, I've got the positive sides. Okay, I have, so I was focused a lot on disgust recently. And as I was saying, how can you live in a house, right, that you find disgusting, that, is so distracting, there's no peace, and it irritates you, okay? The opposite of disgust is actually to transmute it, right? Because I was thinking, okay, it's really difficult sometimes to create a clean space. And, I've been living abroad, and, sometimes different cultural aspects of what is cleanliness. I can trigger others, they can trigger me. That happens quite a lot. Sometimes, like, you go out, there's rats everywhere, and how can you find this peace when everything is so disgusting all around? And maybe you're getting like a little OCD. Like, I find that my disgust is increasing, so I'm feeling more OCD. Like, I don't mean to say it as a, bring light to people who have OCD, but I really was thinking about getting tested for OCD, but now I'm realizing maybe this has more something to do with some wounding. And actually, trauma can cause OCD, from what I was looking up. Okay, because I realized that after housing insecurity and losing control, that's when I felt more inclined to control. And I would get these intrusive thoughts, which actually were helpful at a certain time when it was difficult for me to make decisions. And you have to make a decision when you are in an insecure situation, because not making a decision is a decision, and it's passive and you're allowing things to happen to you. But then if you make the wrong decision, then you can just end up God knows where, right? And so you totally have to have faith, but then you have to have action. So basically, I just relied on I encouraged myself to intrusively think, and then when I was actually in peace, then I would just still get these intrusive thoughts. But I'm in peace now, but I was just like, okay, well, I did that to myself, right? And anyways, but disgust is a part of it. Like, disgust is intrusive, is it not? Like, it feels like you can't control that. It's one of the first emotions you feel as a child when you're a baby, right? Babies feel disgust, like they wrinkle their nose and they feel disgust. That's one of the first things you learn, right? It's essential. In order to digest that, you have to transmute it. And what I think about, because in my victim mindset, I'm like, how can you get over this? How can you are stuck somewhere disgusting and dirty. And, yes, you can clean it, but sometimes you can't, right? There's social rules, or it's just like too much cleaning all the time. It doesn't make you feel at peace. It's irritating to clean, all the time, or too much. So then what do you do with it when you feel this disgust? And I remember hearing a story about Buddha. So not Siddhartha Gautama. I can't remember the name of this Buddha, but he's a Nepalese Buddha. And I remember hearing this story where the Lotus-born Buddha, what is his name? So the Lotus-born Buddha in Tibet, right? He was adopted. He was found in a lotus. And, right, so he's said not to be born from a human or anything. And he was just so innocent and naive growing up that he ended up finding himself in trouble, okay, with a princess, I think, who was living entirely with nuns. So she was surrounded completely by women by the intention of her father. And because he just was so radiant and innocent, all the women trusted him and allowed him into the facility. And then when the king found out that there was a man there where it's supposed to be only women, of course he's enraged, and he punished him by sending him basically to a cemetery. Okay, so he's surrounded by death, and it was absolutely disgusting, right? Decaying bodies everywhere, and horrible surroundings. But he was able to transform that environment into a lotus field, just as he came. The innocence that he was when he arrived, he was able to transform that, transmute it, and just through meditation, and transmute it into lotus field, just as he came before. And then he was found by the king. And then obviously, if you see that kind of superpower, then he would believe he's innocent, I guess. But the point is, I don't think that I'm Buddha, and that I'm able to transmute to that degree. But this is what I'm going to be working on, is transmuting my disgust. And through meditation, I know, like as I said, some smells, some things, sometimes it's so hard to focus on meditation, but I'm going to try, and I'm going to exercise that in working on the disgust. And this goes the same with relationships and people. So like I said, I'm feeling disgust in general. It's not just in relationships, but it's coming from this wound of worthiness, I believe. And then we have fear. The opposite would be, because as we were saying before, the root is fear and shame, would be to transform negative emotions to positive. So that's, again, a nice, basically a type of transmutation. It's transform. So transform also means that you would get a new result. So if you imagine negative into positive, just as I said before, but transform is a little bit different than transmute. And that transmute would just be kind of to clean, basically, as I was saying before. But he transmuted and transformed by creating a lotus field. So it's almost like you also have to create this new thing here. So I'm thinking fear is negative, but it can also be a positive thing if you work through it with confidence, right? And you try something new, something that you want to do. That's a way to transmute and transform, because now you've created this experience. Instead of just like sitting with the fear and getting rid of the fear, you actually did the thing that you were afraid of. That's a good thing. Some things, maybe you should just transmute it and not do it. And then shame, again, is a transformation. But just transformation in general was the notes that I found. So I found all this online. So you can also do your own research and say, well, not quite, maybe you already know more than me. But transformation of shame into worth, basically, which I think would be best done through, what's the word? When you go, I have it written down on another paper, not the one that I have here. Reframes. So this would be nicely done with reframes, affirmations that reframe. So before, like if you were like me and you were a people pleaser, you tried to do a reframe subconsciously by saying, I am helpful, that makes me worthy. But now you can reframe and just say, I'm worthy, right? And if it's hard to say I'm worthy, you can do, as I put here, different kinds of worthiness. You are needed here. You are loving. You are loved, right? Again, that loved, that's what children need. And when someone's not loving you properly or in the way that you need, then that's where you feel that you're not worthy of love. So here you are confident. You are ready for anything. You are brave and fearless, against the fear, right? So these different types of affirmations, and so many that you can find online. And then treachery goes against your worth, right? Every time you've been betrayed. And I think if you were living, as I said, I had that dream, right, of the woman who was giving too freely of her body. Okay. And then being betrayed by society, basically, or, how her partners were treating her in return, because she was giving freely, pleasing others, but she was not being pleased. Okay. So that's also a type of betrayal. You can be betrayed by society as well. It doesn't just have to be your parents, it can be the society at large, your community. And it reminds me of that African village. I don't remember where, but there's a saying that the proverb, if the child doesn't feel the love from the village, or that it will get its worth by burning it down, something like that. I don't know. And so I'm thinking, like, if you're noticing maybe these irritation, this disgust, this criticism, maybe it's not in your direct relationships, or it is, but it's also expanded out into your view on society, which a lot of us have as teenagers, right? And maybe you have this as well. And actually, when I think about it, I do have these feelings towards society right now at greater large. And I think a lot of us do, from what I've seen, right? A lot is going on to society, and I feel betrayed by society because it's not what I was promised I would receive as a child. If I did these good things for my nation, if I did these good things for the world, right, then I would receive. So, if I helped my planet, right, I recycled, then I would receive a healthy planet. But I did not. And I often see that, like, I feel bad. It's just repeating the same thing for the next generation. Like, I'm telling you, okay, recycle, telling the child, but then like, why? Okay, I'm getting off on a tangent there. Like, I don't see anything improving or getting better, basically, like I was told it would. And I often feel like I'm being cheated because I will see the same science repeated, basically, where I would see, like, and I'm feeling like I'm encouraging some people. I do believe in global warming, okay? I do. So anyone that doesn't believe in that, I just want to let you know that I do before we get into an argument. But I also believe there's corruption and things like that. So I see the same science experiments or, results. I'm trying to think of the right word, but they come back again in, like, the cycle. Right? Like, I always am here. I remember in high school hearing about mushrooms that can eat your plastic trash. And I was so like, oh, I can't wait until I have mushrooms in my trash can eating my plastic. And then I saw it again, viral. I'm like 30 now, and I saw a viral thing like, oh, they're making mushrooms that can eat your plastic. That was not new. It's not a new idea. And it just keeps cycling back as if it's new, and I'm irritated. And I know science takes a long time, but that's part of the irritation, right? So back to ourselves. So, and then I mentioned jealousy before as part of the Manipura cycle, right? But this is something that I don't really feel that I need to work on so much. And maybe if you're a people pleaser, you don't. But if you're in the other side of the relationship, then you probably do. Okay. And this is with inner peace, balance, and harmony. And I think because I don't really experience this jealousy as, like, it's really easy for me to transmute jealousy. I'm not saying I never experience it. That would be a lie. I think we all experience these things. It's just, are you able to transform and transmute? This is the fire chakra. This is connected to the fire element, right? So fire would just be transformation. Everything here is transformation. So if you feel jealousy and you get that little signal and then it's easily transmuted, right? Then it's doing its job. It's working nicely. It's working well. So you easily transmute it and you change it, transform it into admiration, right? Then that's how it should be working, right? You should feel this inner peace, this balance and harmony instead of jealousy. But if you're like me, and I think people pleasing, you would likely, if you do experience jealousy more, because I do think that there's something about this like karma in past karmic relationships, what you've worked on before in your past life, if you believe in past life, or, you know, when you're younger, you're not going to necessarily have as much of that to deal with, and it just might come naturally to you for some reason. Okay, so I'm thinking maybe it's related to like people pleasing, but you could still be a people pleaser and feel jealousy and in a toxic way. You would probably just likely repress it. So you might not be actually dealing with anger so much, but maybe you're dealing with jealousy because you have these insecurities or something like that. But I don't necessarily have that pattern. So I was focusing more on the pattern that I have. So you might not have this much disgust because maybe you've already worked through it in a past life, okay? Or you haven't worked through it yet, okay? But that's the other thing. Okay, so, but here, because I feel I often have this place of balance and harmony, but obviously I'm not in balance, in harmonic, okay? And then the opposite of thirst would be personal power, self-esteem, and confidence, right? So you don't need something to fulfill your needs, right? Because you already have that self-esteem, and that ties to the self-worth. And then the opposite of spiritual ignorance is willpower, decision-making, and self-control. Okay, so obviously, yeah, the opposite of ignorance is knowledge, but because this chakra has so much to do with action, this is where the willpower is coming in, right? Just having that knowledge isn't going to be enough. You have to act on it. And then, of course, the opposite of sadness is vitality and happiness. So vitality is a keyword there because sadness, you have the depression you can also think of, right? And lethargy, okay? And again, so I looked up all of this online, and if you have a different source, then maybe you would have a, different interpretation. Oh, and I almost skipped a few. So the opposite of foolishness is digestion and metabolism, which connects nicely to vitality. And this is where you've got the stomach, if you have any stomach issues. And naivety, I kept saying naivety in this download for you. So foolishness here, naivety, I think would be related to that. And why would it be digestion and metabolism? That's something for me to think about a little bit more. So again, I've researched that online. But that nicely, like, physically connects to that physical sensation you're feeling. So it kind of makes sense to me, but if this is something you want to look more into, you can look more into it. This is just something I'm seeing now that I could look more into if I wanted. And maybe I should, because I need to work on my digestion and metabolism. So how does that connect to my foolish behavior? I don't know. Okay. And then the opposite of delusion is spiritual connections. So you often kind of see people who have delusions in the spiritual community, actually. And, we're so nice in the spiritual community. We don't often say something when we see it. We just allow them to have their delusion because it's just, it's kind of a matter of opinion. And I think the difference is more about connecting with your emotions as well as the train of thought that you're on, right? If the train of thought is just taking you away, then that's when you know it's a delusion. But if it's feeling grounded, then you have that spiritual connection, okay? And it's hard to find in the spiritual community or within ourselves, like where is that? Because you, as you're transforming and you're becoming spiritual, you do feel like you're going insane, and you do go insane, right? Kind of as I was mentioning earlier about the disgust, like, is this an emotional wound, or do I need to see someone about this? Like, what's going on here? Okay, and it could be both, right? Depression is a big one. Okay, sadness and depression, like that's something like you should. There's a lot of delusion that comes with that because you're often thinking you're a victim, and I'm speaking out of experience. Okay. But this is something I know in this life, I worked on the sadness and the depression, right? But I haven't necessarily gotten to this vitality. Like my happiness is increased, but even then it hasn't, like, I feel calm and more peaceful, which I'm just saying irritation, right? So many things can be true at one time. There's so many aspects here, but in order to get it balanced, these all have to be transmuted and transformed, go basically through the fire. Okay, so at the end, what's the shadow work? What's your homework? Okay, is tapping into these negative emotions, finding them in your body, maybe doing yoga. Okay. Yes, maybe researching more on the, I want to call it sacral chakra. In the solar plexus chakra, like obviously it's bright yellow, it's solar, the solar plexus chakra, and learning more about these emotions that are really so prevalent in our 3D experience and in our relationships with ourselves, with our partner, with our parents, with everyone, with society. It goes quite deep. And this chakra is the energy center for you. So if you found, like I was saying earlier, you worked on your root chakra, you're getting yourself out of bad situations, but you keep coming back to it, it's because of this chakra. Once you balance this chakra, then you will have so much more freedom, the freedom that you're looking for, right? And willpower and, the ability to move forward out of this wound that is coming from trauma, maybe CPTSD. I was mentioning a lot of CPTSD kind of things, but it could also be a specific event, and you probably know what it is. But if you're not sure, doing like a meditation, doing a body scan, following the emotions that rise, the memories that rise, and just letting them out first, like no judgment towards those emotions, and seeing if they're blocking something deeper, right? So like I was saying, disgust and anger, they were blocking my deeper insecurities and the fear and the shame that I have because of the shadow side of how I was choosing partners. Makes me feel like I'm a bad person, right? Because if you're a people pleaser, you're people pleasing in order to be a good person. Because if you're a good person, then you're a worthy person. But if you look back and you realize that you are making people feel unworthy of love intentionally, like not so intentional, but not consciously, but in some subconscious way, you are manipulating the situation and putting yourself as a victim, and they are the evil person. That doesn't align with who you've said you were your entire life, right? And that's something to work on. And again, like if I'm saying, like if you're getting this message, this is my message. This is my download as well. Okay. And I will have more on this. So I've been working on some affirmations, especially with respect. And that's something I was working on before I started working on this solar plexus. I'm still working on the solar plexus. So if you have anything to say, I would love to hear it. I'm finding it actually really interesting, the symbolism. I didn't know how deep the symbolism was in chakras, right? So I had this argument with my husband last night because, and so maybe I'm supposed to bring this up because what you might take of it as you like chose a project partner or a survival partner, so that means that that's not actually the person you're supposed to be with. But as I was saying before, with this Lovers card here, I wasn't seeing it as like this person is another person. It's just like an aspect of yourselves here that needs to be worked through. Okay, so maybe I need to tell you this story so you can see how that would look like in your own self. I'm feeling embarrassed by my own actions right now. Okay, so you see here how I was trying to write the sounds here in Sanskrit, and I don't know Sanskrit, and my husband is Indian. Okay, and I already know my husband has really bad dyslexia, and he didn't do well when he was studying language, and he couldn't read Sanskrit very well growing up. But I thought, okay, I would just ask him, because when I was doing the research, they weren't written in the same order that I had written down. So it would be like here, 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 right? And they're very similar. So they would look like the same, like this is spam, and then there's spam again somewhere. But it's actually like a palm, right? And then there's some that looks the same, like dam and dam, okay? But it's slightly different tone, and I can't do that right now. I need to study more if I'm going to get the slightly different tone right. So I didn't even write the different tone. So it is spelled different because there's a different tonal thing, but tones are hard. And I'm not studying Sanskrit. Okay. I just wanted to have an idea about it. Like the center is Ram, right? And that's probably the most important thing that you know is this is Ram. Okay. But I was just wanting to study these lotus petals as well because I didn't know that. I only knew about the central parts for all the chakras, and I didn't realize that the petals had a meaning too. So I found that really interesting. And when I put these together, that this is what I was actually working on. I didn't know that this was my project, was the solar plexus, until I saw the vision of the stars, like the constellation. And I didn't know there was so much meaning in it. I thought it was just, I'm worthy and that's it. And I was so disconnected from that I didn't even realize that I had a problem in self-worth, as I said before, because I associated other things with self-worth other than the innate self-worth, like innate worth. We're just innately worthy. That was hard for me. And I went to my husband to get help. And as you see here, there's a mistake here. And I am a perfectionist. Right? And that is coming from the mother wound I was telling you about earlier with the narcissistic mother, who she really valued intelligence. And I had to also be as intelligent as her because I'm the daughter, so I represent her, right? And anytime I did anything wrong, it was the worst. Okay? I have received so much criticism growing up, as I was saying. And so I was so angry at him because he messed me up because I saw that there was only 2 dams with the H, and now it seems so silly. Why was I so angry? And man, I'm so mean. And then because there's other things that I feel justified in being angry about, but I'm actually taking that out on him during this little small project. And then I find out that this is actually without an H. And I insulted him badly. And I came in here and I stormed off, and then I made a big mess with the whiteout. And then I realized the irony of what I was doing. So I went to him and I apologized. And since I've been working on this, I've had to apologize so much more than I'm used to. I'm used to nobody ever apologizing to me, right? So now I'm apologizing because that's what I want for myself. So I will do it for others, even if there's other things that I feel that I'm angry about. I should apologize for this because this is not the other things, right? That is being passive aggressive. Okay? So I apologized to him. Like I said, I already know that he's badly dyslexic, and he didn't even know he was badly dyslexic. I just figured it out and because I always had to be perfect, and I know so much about, like, I was the perfect student and he was the opposite because of his dyslexia. And he was just bullied so badly in school for being stupid, right? And now I was bullying him, and I was wounding him, and I was attacking his self-worth to make myself more worthy, because the same thing I was saying here with this criticism that I was receiving from my mother, I'm making myself worthy to my mother in the past. And it's like we have the same wound. They're just opposite in some odd aspect, right? Where I didn't feel smart enough either. I didn't feel good enough either. But instead, I made myself a perfectionist. And I have to show how smart I am by making everything perfect all the time. This isn't even homework. It's just for you. Right? And how many people are going to see it? I don't know. But I've always been a perfectionist in school, and that even now, this is not perfect. This is very far from perfect, okay? And I just had to embrace it as it was, right? And I had to apologize for hurting him in his core wound. And, wow, it went really deep for him. More than I knew, right? Because I was focused on myself. And when I talked with him about it, and I realized how deeply it hurt him, because I learned more about the bullying he received. I realized back in this people-pleasing behavior where the shadow is like, that person, they're not as worthy of love as I am kind of thing, right? That you're doing subconsciously. Like, I'm not actually saying that about my partner, okay? So I just treat him like a project partner. He's wounded. And, I'm meaning to give him the support, right? Because I feel like I don't have support. So, and I don't feel my own worthiness. Then I've transformed it as, well, he's not worthy either. How rude and mean is that? So first, working on yourself and your self-worth doesn't automatically mean that your partner is going to, change. It can mean that, definitely can mean that. It's just meaning that you're going to change this dynamic of treating them like a project partner and people-pleasing and stuff like that. You're going to be working on your self-worth, and that's going to make you go and apologize when you start to act like your parents, and then they're going to come out of their own woundedness, and they're going to be vulnerable, and they're going to start healing in their own way that they need to. But so obviously he has some solar plexus wounds as well that he's going to work on in his own way. And if he does that, then that's the person that you're meant to be with. And, if they don't do that, then maybe naturally the relationship would change, maybe fall apart. I don't know. But not everything is just like, okay, he's not good enough for you, girl, move on, right? And that's a lot of what my feed is, because, we are working through things and stuff like that. But I want to at least know that I am doing what I can to be a good partner, and you first be a good partner, then you look at the relationship you're in and figure out what to do with it. You will see it better. You will know, right? There's so many people that are, blaming their partner, and they see them as a narcissist, but maybe it's actually more equal than that. Okay? Maybe it's not a narcissistic empath relationship. It's just that you have actually, in some aspect, because you are not feeling worthy, have created this dynamic which is also hurting your partner. Okay, apologize if I repeated myself too much. I just really felt like getting that across. And I hope that this helps you. I'm manifesting that this is going to people who are experiencing the same core wound in the same relationship pattern, and that they are able to overcome it and break it in the way that is most suitable for them, that they acknowledge that they're worthy of love and they are worthy of existing and in general, worthy of respect, worthy of this transformation that we're going on in this journey. Okay, I wish you all the best. Many blessings to you, and thank you so much.